Well, today's season preview is all about the U. That's right, the University of Miami, one of the most historic football programs in the ACC. The 80s and 90s and early 2000s was such an incredible run for the U, but in recent years it's been kind of disappointing. They had that run with Mark Richt where they actually made the ACC championship game, and the phenomenon of turnover chain just took the college football world by storm. But last year, Mario Cristobal's first year, they went 5-7 with some really disappointing and head-scratching losses, especially that Middle Tennessee State loss. But you look at the injuries that they had last year, and you do have to take into account that it was Mario Cristobal's first year. I think it was sort of an anomaly, just a perfect storm of bad things happening that you wouldn't really expect to happen again. But let's go ahead and jump into the departures. Darrell Jackson, a defensive lineman, he enters the transfer portal. That's a pretty big loss. If you look at the Miami Insider page on 24/7 Sports, they are just crushed by this loss. He was going to be such a big part of their game plan on the defensive line with getting pressure to the quarterback and run stopping. Really wish you could have him back. Vontae Williams, the safety as well, with all the troubles that you had covering the deep ball, particularly in that Middle Tennessee loss. Really needs safety help. And then Ja'Kai Clark, interior offensive lineman, also is gone. Really need some help there on the offensive lineman. Miami ranked 69th in sack rate, which is really bad, especially for the Power 5. You need to protect the quarterback, and you need to protect Tyler Van Dyke, who's coming back for another year. Tyler Van Dyke, he didn't have a great year last year. I believe he had 10 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, which is not going to get it done in the Power 5, particularly the ACC. But you look at his overall career at Miami, and he's done pretty well in some very important quarterbacks categories, particularly his off-target rate. It's 9% in his career, which is the best in the ACC. So definitely, you have a guy that can play quarterback for you. You just have to protect him with his linemen. And so let's get into the arrivals. You get two really good offensive tackles. Francis Moigua, I believe I'm saying that correct. Apologies if I'm not. And Samson Okunlola, both 5-star offensive tackles, as I said. That's huge for you, with me talking about how you need to protect the quarterback and get. You also have to get your running game up. Miami, your leading rusher, Henry Parrish Jr., only had 617 yards, 4.7 average on his carries, which is not horrible, but if you want to be in the upper echelon of the Power 5, you definitely have to have a guy with a higher rushing yards than that. Only 4 touchdowns, that's not great. And you also bring in Jaden Davis, a 4-star cornerback. You also had 3 other cornerbacks that were 4 stars. Miami had a really good recruiting class this offseason. I believe it ranked 7th or 8th nationally, according to 24/7 Sports. So a really good recruiting job by Cristobal. And this is part of what I mean when I say that this is going to be a pretty good bounce back year for Miami. You look at everything that's happening around the program. They brought in a new offense coordinator who's going to give Tyler Van Dyke more freedom with audibling out of plays when they line up on the line of scrimmage. That's huge because Tyler Van Dyke definitely knows his stuff at this point. It's his 3rd system that he's learning, but he's so passionate about being a Miami Hurricane. When you look at the interviews that he's done this offseason, they asked him just today, actually, if he considered taking any NIL money at a different school just to transfer. And he was pretty adamant about the fact that he was a Miami Hurricane, and he really wants to go out the right way from this football program. So I think it's going to be a pretty good season from Tyler Van Dyke and the offense. They're looking for redemption. This is a year of redemption for the entire Miami program, and strengths. That rolls right into my strengths. Quarterback, obviously, and the defensive line. Miami had one of the highest sack rates last year, even with their disappointing season. I believe they were 9th nationally, which is excellent. That's right where you want to be, if not the top. But top 10 for that stat is very good. Weaknesses, offensive line, like I said, need to protect the quarterback, need to establish that running game. And your safeties are also a big weakness. Need to stop the long ball, need to protect that. So those are the concerns going into the season. But let's get into the schedule. You start off in the Battle of the Miamis, facing Miami, Ohio at home. I think this is a win, obviously. I know the Middle Tennessee loss, not great, but I think it's an outlier. You know, they definitely want to start locking up these games against group of 5 opponents, and this will be the start of getting back on track with the program. So win versus Miami, Ohio. Definitely don't want to lose this game with the recruits that you want to bring in for the future. Just get the program back on track by getting a win in week 1. And then you face Texas A&M. So Miami versus Texas A&M, I don't think anyone will disagree with me, is the battle of the disappointing seasons last year. Neither of them made a bowl game. They even played each other last year, and it was a close game, 17-9, I believe. Jimbo arguably is in a worse spot because it wasn't his first year. He had a really good recruiting class. He lost a lot of them with that disappointing year last year. And he brings in Bobby Petrino to be his offensive coordinator, which that blows my mind just because of Bobby Petrino's personal history with him leaving teams in ruins, jumping ship in the middle of the season. I don't know why you would bring someone like that into your program. Honestly, you get them at home. I'm putting this as a win for Miami because I think Miami's at a better spot in terms of a program. Mario Cristobal, it was his first year last year at Miami. He had a really good recruiting class. Texas A&M, Jimbo also recruits pretty well, but man, oh man, I don't know what is going on in College Station. That whole situation just confuses me, honestly. I don't know why Jimbo can't succeed there. I don't know. Then you face Bethune-Cookman. This should be a win. That was one of your big wins, at least point-wise, last year. You beat them 70-13 or something? Yeah. That's a win. And then you play Temple. Temple, one of those group of 5 teams that can give you some trouble if you're a Power 5 team and you come out napping. You also have to go on the road to Temple, which is pretty interesting. I'm not sure. Did you schedule a home and home? Possibly. No, you did not schedule a home and home. Very interesting. I don't know what that's all about. But I think you get the win. I think you handle business. Temple, like I said, can give some Power 5 teams some trouble, but I think you get the job done as part of rebuilding the Miami football program and being a redemption year. These are the games that, after the Middle Tennessee loss, you want to leave no doubt that you beat these group of 5 teams going forward. Then you face Georgia Tech. Now, if you watch my Georgia Tech video, you know what I think about this game. I think you start off 4-0. You'll probably be ranked after that Texas A&M win, and I think you come out a little flat, and I think Georgia Tech beats you. Georgia Tech, this is Brent Key's first full year. He had some interim games, but they had some ranked wins that really surprised a lot of people at Pitt, at UNC, and I think that streak kind of continues, or at least that trend kind of continues, where they get some unexpected wins against ranked teams on the road, and Miami gets added to that list this year. Now, could I be completely wrong? Of course. I always qualify that. But, you have to look at what happened last year. If you had gone up to someone and said, Miami and Texas A&M are going to miss a bowl game, both of them, with the rosters that they had coming back, I'm willing to bet that if you are being truthful, you would have said you are absolutely insane. And, well, that ended up happening. So my logic is that teams lose to teams you wouldn't expect them to lose to, and teams beat teams you wouldn't expect them to beat. And this is one of those cases. You have to pick upsets in college football. It's just part of the sport. I mean, football in general, not even college football. Football in general. You just have to pick upsets. So this is the upset that I'm picking. Georgia Tech beats Miami on the road. Probably Miami, like I said, probably ranked. And then you go at UNC. UNC has a new offensive coordinator. There's a lot of hype around Drake May. A lot of people think that he's going to improve with this new offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey, and some people think that he's going to take a step back. Personally, I think he's going to take a step back. I think this is going to be a sophomore slump for Drake May, and I think Miami gets the win just because of better quarterback play from Tyler Van Dyke. I think Tyler Van Dyke is a very accurate quarterback. I mean, obviously with the off-target rate being the best in the ACC, I think UNC's defense is still as bad or even worse as last year, which, if you follow the ACC at all, you know that that's pretty abysmal. So I think Miami simply just outscores them throughout the course of the game. So a win for the Hurricanes in Chapel Hill between the Pines. And then you face Clemson. Clemson, obviously the dominant team in the ACC. I think this is a loss simply because of how far ahead they are as a program. Cade Klubnik gets a new offensive coordinator from TCU to help him out. The defense is still going to be really good. I don't know how good the offensive line will be at this point for Miami, but I think even then you just have to take into account that Clemson's defensive line is chock full of NFL talent, and that simply gets them by, shutting down that Miami offense. And also their secondary at Clemson is phenomenal. Their entire defense, really, it's an elite defense, and that will be enough to get by. And then you play Virginia at home. As always, my heart goes out to Virginia. One of the worst tragedies that can happen to any group. No one should have to go through that. However, when it comes to football, I think that Virginia is in a low point. Obviously, this is Tony Elliott's second year. And I've said before on many of my videos that Virginia is a long project to take on as a head coach. And this is year 2 of that project. You played them last year in a 4 overtime game. That was one of the weirdest things that happened last year. 4 overtimes, and it was only 14-12, which is really crazy. But a win. You get them at home this year. I think this is pretty handily a win. Yeah. And then you go to NC State. Now, NC State had one of the best defenses last year. They lose a chunk of that in the offseason, but they keep a lot of key players. Aiden White, Peyton Wilson. And, NC State has a lot of guys that got a lot of experience last year and the year before with the injuries that they had. Got a lot of playing time, a lot of depth. Their defensive coordinator likes to rotate guys. They've tried to build up the team from a defensive standpoint. They've now worked on the offense. Brought in Robert Nene, which I think that's one of the greatest hires this offseason within the ACC. And they brought in Brennan Armstrong, which that offensive coordinator quarterback duo did exceptionally well at Virginia. So if that offense from what they had at Virginia compare with that NC State defense that they, in at least the style that they had last year, they are going to be a dangerous team. And I think they will be a dangerous team. And that's why I have you losing to the Wolfpack in Raleigh. And then you face your big rival, Florida State, the most important game for Miami every year when they play Florida State. Last year, you got embarrassed. You were blown out by the Seminoles 45-3. And as I said, this is a redemption year for the Hurricanes. And they can win all these other games on the schedule that they've won so far. But the important one to them is proving to Florida State that they can still compete with them. And so that's why I have the Hurricanes going on the road and beating the Seminoles. And I think it's mainly because of Tyler Van Dyke, the guys that they brought in this offseason, particularly on the offensive line, to counter that very good Florida State defensive line. I think Florida State will be a little overconfident going into this game. And as I said in the Florida State preview, when that defensive line doesn't show up, it gave them problems. It gave them problems in the Florida game. It gave them problems in the Oklahoma game. And what's really concerning to me is that it happened in the Florida game. That's a rivalry game for Florida State. So them not showing up in a rivalry game can absolutely happen. So I think Miami puts more emphasis on this game just because of how last year went, and with all the additions that they have, they get the win against the Noles. And just to say, Miami's permanent opponents with the new scheduling model are Boston College, Florida State, and Louisville, which all come in the last 3 weeks. That's really interesting. Florida State, obviously, rivalry there. Boston College, also kind of a rivalry with the Big East history that they have. And then Louisville was kind of head-scratching to me. They don't really have a history against one another, but come to find out the other day, the ACC now has a new rivalry trophy for the Louisville-Miami game. It's called the Howard Schnellenberger Trophy. I'll put a picture of it up on the screen. He coached at both programs, and he led Miami to their first national title. Obviously, a very good college coach. And I think this is important, you know, with Louisville not really having history between a lot of these teams, you have to give some sort of connection between the two. And something like this really helps with developing a rivalry. You know, giving them something to play for is really good. So, nice job. Nice job. Whoever's idea of this was, if it was the ACC itself or the athletic directors at Louisville or Miami, really good job. I think Louisville's going to have a tough year with it being Jeff Brom's first season. You know, he's trying to turn over the roster from Scott Satterfield. I think the offensive system right now is a little more run heavy than he would like. He brings in a pocket passer for his quarterback. I think you get the win at Louisville just because the scheme to the players right now does not mesh. So yeah. And then you go to Boston College. Boston College will be better than they were last year in terms of their offensive line. Their defensive line is going to be pretty good, but I think Tyler Van Dyke will carve up their secondary. You know, that's one of their major concerns is their secondary at Boston College with the cornerbacks that they lost in the offseason. So I think you get a win at Boston College. You'll be 9-3. You'll make a bowl game. Possibly win that bowl game and have a 10-win season, which is really great, especially considering where you were last year. You know, to go from 5-7 to 10-3, you look at a lot of the programs around the country, and they would take that turnaround. So overall, I think it'll be a good season for Miami. It'll be a season of redemption. They'll definitely circle that Florida State game as their biggest win, unless they get some big bowl victory win against like Florida, if Florida makes a bowl game. But yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Everyone who subscribed, I'd like to thank them. And I'll see you in the next video, which will be the North Carolina Tar Heels.
The turnover chain ready.
Well, they've been seeing that chain a lot lately.
Rim loads, throws for Mitchell, intercepted. There's Malik Young, and what's the hardware? Got a little jewelry.
Over the middle, it's picked off. And they're trying to get the turnover chain. And look, he's jumping up and down saying, where's my chain? They give a necklace each time you get a turnover.
Screen, ball comes out. It's on the ground. Kenny's have it. Gets the turnover chain ready for the first time tonight. That is huge. He's only rushed three. Throw high. There's the back. Jaquan Johnson will be the first wearer of the turnover chain tonight. His third interception this season.